Commander Zethkar looked at the stars through the main window of his ship and felt proud of his work. His blue skin showed many scars from years of meeting new alien races across the galaxy. Each scar told a story of a successful mission where he helped different species understand each other. The Valerian people were known for being good at talking to aliens and making peace between different worlds, his ship called. Star's Grace was on a normal patrol near the edge of space where humans lived. The Galactic Council had recently learned about humans and wanted to know more about them. From what Zethkar read in the files, humans were a young species who had just learned how to travel faster than light. They seemed friendly, but not very advanced compared to other races in the galaxy. The alarm on his ship started making noise. His assistant Velinara turned to him with her 4 eyes wide with concern. She pointed at the screen showing a ship in trouble floating in empty space. The ship was sending out a distress signal that meant they needed help right away. "Commander, we are getting a call for help from that ship," Velinara said in her musical voice. "The ship appears to be human based on the signal type." Zethkar nodded and walked closer to look at the information on his screen. The human ship was called Liberty's Edge and it looked badly damaged. Burn marks covered the outside and no lights were showing, which meant they had no power. His scanner showed there were 43 life forms still alive inside the ship. "What happened to them?" he asked. "The computer says pirates attacked them," Velinara replied. "It looks like they were carrying medical supplies to a colony world." When the attack happened, Zethkar felt sorry for the humans. Pirates were a big problem in this part of space and often attacked ships carrying important supplies. The Karthik marauders were especially cruel and would steal everything before selling the crew as slaves to the highest bidder. "Send them a message," he ordered. "Tell them we are coming to help." The face of a human male appeared on the screen. He had brown hair and tired eyes but managed to smile when he saw Zethkar. This was the first time the commander had seen a human up close, and he found them interesting to look at. They were smaller than most intelligent species he knew and seemed fragile. "Thank you for responding to our call," the human said. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. We really need your help." "I am Commander Zethkar of the Valerian Expedition Fleet," he replied. "We will bring your ship into our docking bay and help your wounded crew members." As they pulled the human ship inside, Zethkar watched the crew through the cameras. They moved around their ship, checking damage and helping injured friends. A woman with black hair was treating wounded people with calm skill. The computer identified her as Dr. Lisa Shang, their chief medical officer. Another human was looking at the broken machines with great interest. This was engineer Pete Collins, according to the files. He seemed excited to see how Valerian technology worked, even though his own ship was badly damaged. When the airlock opened, Captain Morrison came aboard with several of his crew. They all looked tired and grateful for the rescue. Morrison shook hands with Zethkar in the human way of greeting. The commander had read about this custom and found it strange but friendly. "We cannot thank you enough," Morrison said. "The pirates destroyed our engines and took most of our supplies. We thought we were going to die out here." Dr. Chang worked with the Valerian medical team to help the wounded humans. She was quiet and focused on her work, but always said thank you when the alien doctors helped her. Collins kept asking questions about how everything worked on the Valerian ship. He seemed amazed by technology that was normal for most galaxy species. "Your people are very curious," Zethkar told Morrison as they walked through the ship. "We like to learn new things," the captain replied. "This is all very new to us. A few years ago we thought we were alone in the universe." Zethkar nodded. Many species felt that way when they first met other intelligent life. The humans seemed to be handling it well. They were polite and grateful and did not seem dangerous at all. His reports to the Galactic Council would say that humans were a peaceful species who would fit well into the galaxy community. The medical teams finished helping the wounded, and Collins had seen enough of the ship to be satisfied. Morrison gathered his crew and thanked everyone again for their help. Everything was going exactly as it should according to the first contact rules that Zethkar had learned over many years, but something felt different about these humans. They were grateful and polite, but there was something in their eyes that he could not understand. When they thought no one was watching, they would look at each other and nod slightly. It was like they were having conversations without speaking. The peaceful moment ended when alarms started ringing throughout the ship. Velanara rushed to her station and checked the long-range sensors. Her 4 eyes went wide with fear as she read the information. "Commander," she said with worry in her voice, 15 ships just appeared on our sensors. They are Karthik marauder vessels, and they are heading straight for us? Zethkar felt his blood turn cold. 1 or 2 pirate ships he could handle, but 15 was an army. The Karthak were known for their cruelty and their powerful weapons. They had destroyed entire colonies and sold the survivors as slaves across the galaxy. Captain Morrison and his crew did not seem surprised by this news. In fact, they seemed to become more alert and focused. Collins stopped looking around like a tourist and started studying the tactical displays with great interest. Dr. Chang finished putting away her medical supplies and stood ready for whatever came next. "It looks like they followed us here," Morrison said calmly. "I'm sorry we brought this trouble to your ship." But Zethkar noticed something strange. The humans did not look scared. They looked ready. The space around them suddenly filled with massive ships appearing from nowhere. Zethkar watched in horror as 15 Karthik vessels took positions around his single patrol ship. Each enemy ship was 3 times larger than Star's Grace and covered with weapon systems that could destroy entire planets. The largest ship moved to the front of the group. Zethkar knew this had to be the command vessel of War Chief Groktar, the most feared pirate leader in this part of the galaxy. Groktar had conquered 12 different species and turned their homeworlds into smoking ruins. His reputation for cruelty was known across hundreds of star systems. A message came through the communication system. The voice was deep and filled with hatred when the computer translated it into words Zethkar could understand. The image on the screen showed a creature that looked like a walking nightmare. Groktar stood over 4 meters tall with black armor covering his body. His face had too many teeth and his eyes glowed red with anger. "Valerian ship," the war chief spoke with menace. "You will give us the humans immediately. Our buyers have special plans for this species, and they pay very well for fresh specimens." Zethkar felt his hands shake as he looked at the overwhelming force surrounding his ship. Valerian military training taught him to look for peaceful solutions first, but sometimes there was no choice but to fight. His ship had good weapons and strong shields, but not enough to handle 15 enemy cruisers at the same time. "If you refuse to cooperate," Groktar continued, "we will take your crew as well. Valerian slaves bring good prices in the outer markets." The pirate leader's threat made Zethkar's blood boil with anger. No civilized species should treat thinking beings like property to be bought and sold. The Galactic Council had laws against slavery, but the Karthak did not care about laws or rules. Zethkar looked at Captain Morrison and his crew standing nearby. The humans were listening to every word, but their faces showed no fear. Morrison exchanged quick glances with Dr. Chang and Collins. It was like they were having a conversation without speaking words. "We cannot abandon them," Zethkar told his own crew, though his voice shook with worry. "Council law requires us to protect all thinking beings from slavery and harm." Velanara worked at her station trying to find options. Her 4 eyes moved quickly as she checked weapon systems and shield strength. The numbers were not good. Their ship could fight well against 1 or 2 enemies, but 15 ships meant certain death for everyone. "Commander," she said quietly, "our shields can hold for maybe 10 minutes against that much firepower. It will not be enough time to escape." Zethkar nodded and turned to the human captain. He felt terrible about what he had to suggest, but there might be one chance to save some lives. "Captain Morrison," he said with sadness in his voice, "my ship will try to create an opening in their formation. If we can break through their line, you might be able to reach the asteroid field and hide until help arrives." The human captain smiled when he heard this plan. Zethkar had learned that humans smiled when they were happy or found something funny. But this smile was different from the grateful expression Morrison had shown before. This smile made the commander feel uncomfortable in a way he could not explain. "That is very kind of you, Commander," Morrison replied in a voice that sounded strange, "but I think you do not understand what is really happening here." Collins stopped pretending to be interested in the ship's systems and moved to a control panel that Zethkar had not noticed before. Dr. Chang put away her medical supplies and stood with her hands behind her back in a position that looked almost military. "What do you mean?" Zethkar asked, though he was starting to suspect that something was very wrong with his understanding of the situation. Morrison walked to a communication station that definitely had not been there when the humans first came aboard. The equipment looked much more advanced than anything a medical supply ship should have. He pressed several buttons and spoke into a device that appeared from nowhere. "Liberty's Edge to Battle Group 7, he said in a voice that was completely different from before. "We have multiple hostile contacts at our position. Request immediate assistance. Authorization code is Omega-77. Zethkar felt his world turn upside down. Battle Group 7 was a military designation. Medical supply ships did not have battle groups. Medical supply ships did not have authorization codes for military operations. The space around them began to shimmer and bend as new ships prepared to arrive. But these were not gentle appearances like civilian vessels made. The fabric of space-time was being torn apart by military-grade jump drives that could move entire fleets across the galaxy in seconds. "Commander," Dr. Chang said as she moved to another control station, "I apologize for the deception. We needed to confirm that the Karthek were using this space route for their slave-hunting operations." Collins looked up from a display that now showed tactical information covering 3 star systems. "The medical supplies were real, but this is a long-range reconnaissance vessel. We have been tracking these specific pirates for 6 months." Zethkar's mind struggled to process what he was hearing. The grateful refugees were not refugees at all. The primitive humans were not primitive. The helpless victims were something else entirely. "Your council databases listed us as recently achieved faster than light travel, did they not?" Morrison asked with that same uncomfortable smile. "That information is technically correct. We achieved it about 300 years ago. The first human ship materialized in a flash of light that hurt to look at. Then another appeared and another. Within seconds, the space around them was filled with 37 human vessels arranged in perfect military formation. War Chief Groktar's roar of rage came through the communication system. "Impossible! The humans are primitives." "Our intelligence networks confirm this information," a new voice answered him. It was calm and professional and completely terrifying in its confidence. "War Chief Groktar, this is Admiral Kate Sullivan, aboard the UES Thunderbolt. Your intelligence networks confirmed exactly what we wanted you to believe. Surrender now, and we will consider standard prisoner treatment under galactic law." Zethkar looked at the tactical display and felt his legs become weak. The human fleet was not just randomly positioned. Every ship was in exactly the right place for a battle plan that must have been practiced many times before Captain Morrison was no longer pretending to be a grateful refugee. His entire manner had changed to that of a military officer who was very good at his job. "Commander Zethkar, you might want to move your ship to a safe distance. Things are about to become very dangerous." Zethkar stared at the tactical display in complete shock as more human ships continued to appear around them. The 37 vessels moved with precision that spoke of years of training and experience. Each ship took its assigned position, without any visible confusion or delay. This was not a rescue fleet that had been quickly assembled. This was a military force that had been planning this moment for a very long time. The ship he was standing on began to change before his eyes. Panels that had looked like normal civilian equipment started sliding away to reveal hidden weapon systems. The walls themselves seemed to shift and reshape as military-grade shields activated around the hull. What had appeared to be a simple medical supply ship was transforming into something that looked like it belonged in a major space battle. How is this possible? Zethkar asked Captain Morrison, though he was not sure he wanted to hear the answer. Morrison touched a control panel. And suddenly the entire front section of the ship opened up like a flower blooming. Inside was a command center that belonged on a military vessel, complete with tactical displays, weapon controls, and communication equipment that was more advanced than anything Zethkar had ever seen. We needed to get close to the Karthak. Trade routes without being detected, Morrison explained as he took his position at the command station. A medical supply ship carrying aid to colony worlds was the perfect cover. Pirates would either ignore us completely or try to capture us. For the supplies. Dr. Chang moved to a station that was clearly marked for intelligence operations. Her medical equipment was still real, but it was only a small part of what she actually did. "We have been tracking Groktar's fleet for 6 months," she said while bringing up holographic displays showing pirate movements across multiple star systems. "They have been taking humans from our outer colonies and selling them to buyers in the dark sectors of space." Collins walked over to what Zethkar now realized was a weapons control station. The young engineer who had seemed so amazed by alien technology was actually a military specialist who knew exactly how every system worked. "The Liberty's Edge is a Phantom-class reconnaissance vessel," he said with pride. "We can look like anything we want to look like." Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the communication system again. "War Chief Groktar, you have 30 seconds to begin powering down your weapons. After that, we will consider your actions too. Be hostile intent." Groktar's response was filled with rage and disbelief. "You cannot be serious. 15 ships against 37 is still good odds. Human technology is primitive compared to Karthak military power." Zethkar looked at the tactical display and realized something that made his blood run cold. The human ships were not just positioned randomly around the pirate fleet. They had formed a perfect sphere with the Karthak vessels trapped in the center. Every angle was covered, every possible escape route was blocked, and every human ship had clear firing lines that would not hit their own forces. "Admiral," Morrison spoke into his communication device, "all reconnaissance objectives have been completed. We have confirmed pirate movements, identified their supply routes, and gathered intelligence on their buyer networks. Permission to engage?" "Permission granted, Captain," came the reply. "Execute Battle Plan Delta. Show them why humans do not make good slaves." The space around them erupted into chaos as the battle began. But it was not the kind of chaos that Zethkar expected. The human ships moved like they were parts of a single mind, each vessel knowing exactly what every other ship was going to do. There was no confusion, no hesitation, and no wasted movement. The first Karthak ship to fire found itself targeted by 6 human vessels simultaneously. The pirate cruiser's shields held for exactly 4 seconds before collapsing under the concentrated firepower. The ship did not explode dramatically like in the entertainment videos. Instead, it simply stopped working as its systems were methodically destroyed by precise energy beams. War Chief Groktar screamed orders at his fleet, but his ships were already in trouble. The Karthak had built their reputation on attacking weaker targets and running away when faced with equal opposition. They had never fought an enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it. A human destroyer called Use Lightning disappeared behind a wall of enemy fire. Zethkar thought it had been destroyed until it emerged from the other side completely undamaged. The ship's shields had absorbed the attack while its weapons found weak points in 2 pirate vessels. Both enemy ships began losing power as their engine sections were hit with surgical precision. "How are they doing this?" Velinara asked from her station. Her 4 eyes were wide with amazement as she watched the human fleet work. "They are fighting like they can see the future." Dr. Chang heard the question and smiled. "We have been studying Karthak tactics for decades. Every battle they have ever fought has been recorded and analyzed. We know how they think, how they move, and how they react to different situations." Collins added, "Plus, human ships are designed to work together. Our computer systems share information instantly, so every ship knows what every other ship is seeing and doing." Morrison nodded toward the tactical display where 3 more pirate ships were being systematically disabled. The Karthik fight like individuals trying to prove how brave they are. We fight like a single organism with 37 different parts. Zethkar watched in fascination as the human fleet continued its work. This was not a battle in the traditional sense. It was more like watching a skilled surgeon remove a tumor. Every cut was precise, every movement had a purpose, and nothing was wasted. 2 Karthik ships tried to break through the human formation and escape. They found themselves facing a wall of coordinated fire that seemed to anticipate their every move. The pirate vessels were forced back toward the center of the trap, where more human ships waited to disable their engines. "Surrender!" Groktar's voice cracked with desperation. "By the ancient laws of space combat, we surrender, Admiral." Sullivan's response was immediate and terrifying in its calmness. "Surrender acknowledged. Prepare to be boarded for processing of war crimes charges." The battle was over in less than 10 minutes. 15 of the most feared pirate ships in the galaxy had been completely defeated by a human fleet that had barely taken any damage. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed, and only minor damage showed on their shields. Zethkar realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare had just been proven wrong. The aftermath of the battle was unlike anything Zethkar had ever witnessed. Human boarding parties moved from ship to ship with mechanical efficiency, securing each disabled pirate vessel. They worked in teams of 6, their movements coordinated and purposeful. What struck him most was their complete lack of emotion during the process. They were not angry or excited or proud. They simply did their jobs. War Chief Groktar's flagship, the massive dreadnought called Bone Crusher, hung powerless. In space, its weapons were offline, its shields were down, and its engines were dead. The ship that had terrorized dozens of star systems was now nothing more than a floating metal box waiting for human soldiers to come aboard. "Commander," Morrison said as he stood beside Zethkar at the tactical display, "would you like to observe the boarding operation? Your report to the Galactic Council will be more complete if you see how we handle prisoners." Zethkar nodded, though he was not sure he wanted to watch. The humans had been polite and professional during the battle, but now he was about to see what they were really capable of when dealing with enemies face-to-face. The main view screen showed the interior of the Bone Crusher as human marines moved through the corridors. The soldiers wore armor that made them look bigger and more threatening than normal humans. Their weapons were held ready but not pointed at anyone who was not actively fighting. Karthik warriors were 3 meters tall with natural armor plating and claws that could tear through steel. They had conquered dozens of worlds and had never met their match in close combat. Zethkar had seen recordings of Karthik boarding parties ripping apart enemy crews with their bare hands. The first group of pirates tried to make a stand at a corridor junction. 12 Karthik warriors with their weapons raised, ready to fight to the death against the human invaders. They were trained killers who had won hundreds of battles through superior size and natural weapons. The humans came around the corner in a formation that looked almost casual. 6 soldiers moving together like they were taking a walk through a peaceful park. When the shooting started, everything happened so fast that Zethkar almost missed it. The human soldiers moved like they were dancing. They flowed around enemy fire, each one covering the others while taking precise shots that found gaps in Karthik armor. The aliens' natural weapons were useless against opponents who seemed to know exactly where every attack was coming from. In less than 2 minutes, all 12 pirate warriors were on the ground. Some were unconscious, others were wounded but alive. None of them were dead. The humans had won the fight without killing anyone. "Impressive," Collins said as he watched the display. "Marine Team Alpha is getting better at non-lethal takedowns." Dr. Chang was monitoring the medical status of both the human soldiers and their prisoners. "No serious injuries on our side," she reported. "The pirates will need medical attention, but they will all survive." Zethkar stared at the screen in amazement. "They defeated 12 Karthik warriors without killing them?" Morrison nodded. "We prefer to take prisoners when possible." Dead enemies cannot provide information about slave routes and buyer networks. The boarding continued throughout the pirate fleet. Each ship was secured with the same professional efficiency. Human soldiers moved through enemy vessels like they owned them, disabling resistance and securing prisoners. The Marines worked with medical teams to treat wounded pirates, even though these same aliens had been trying to kill them moments before. But what truly frightened Zethkar was not the skill of the human soldiers. It was their faces. Through the security cameras, he could see the expressions of the Marines as they worked. They were calm, focused, and completely in control. They showed no anger toward their enemies, no excitement about victory, and no fear of the dangerous aliens they were fighting. They looked like they were doing routine maintenance work. War Chief Groktar himself was found on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by his personal guard. The pirate leader was over. 4 meters tall and armed with weapons that could cut through starship hulls. His reputation for personal combat was known throughout the galaxy. 6 human Marines walked onto the bridge and surrounded him. Groktar roared a challenge and raised his weapons, ready to die fighting like a warrior. The humans looked at each other, nodded once, and then did something that made Zethkar's blood run cold. They smiled. The fight lasted exactly 37 seconds. When it was over, Groktar was unconscious on the floor with restraints around his arms and legs. His personal guard were all alive but defeated. The humans had captured the most feared pirate leader in the galaxy like he was an unruly child. Medical team to flagship bridge, one of the Marines said into his communication device. We have prisoners requiring treatment for stunning and minor injuries. Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the communication system. All vessels report boarding operations complete. Total prisoners captured, 437. Total enemy casualties, 0. All pirate vessels are secured and ready for transport to tribunal facilities. Zethkar felt dizzy as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. The humans had not just defeated the Karthik fleet. They had captured it completely without killing anyone. Every pirate was alive, every ship was intact, and every piece of evidence was preserved for legal proceedings. This is impossible, he said to Morrison. No species can fight with such precision and restraint. Combat is chaos and confusion and mistakes. Morrison's expression became serious. Commander, what you saw today was not really combat. It was law enforcement on a large scale. These pirates have been committing crimes against human citizens. We came here to arrest them, not to start a war. Dr. Chang looked up from her medical reports. We have been tracking these specific individuals for months. We know their names, their ranks, their personal histories, and their individual crime records. This was not a random battle. This was a planned police operation. Collins added, every Marine on those boarding parties has studied detailed files on every pirate they might encounter. They knew exactly how each enemy would fight before the first shot was fired. Zethkar realized that he was looking at something completely new in galactic history. These humans did not just fight their enemies. They studied them, learned about them, and then defeated them with knowledge instead of just superior firepower. What happens now? He asked. Admiral Sullivan's image appeared on the main screen. She was an older human woman with gray hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Now we process the prisoners according to galactic law, return stolen property to its rightful owners, and submit our evidence to the appropriate tribunals. She paused and looked directly at Zethkar. Commander, your government will want to know about this operation. We would appreciate your honest report about what you observed here today. Zethkar nodded slowly. His report would change everything. The galaxy thought it knew about humans. They were not primitive newcomers to space travel. They were something far more dangerous than any military force the galaxy had ever seen. They were patient hunters who turned law enforcement into an art form. Hours later, Zethkar found himself aboard the human flagship UES Thunderbolt, still trying to understand what he had witnessed. The ship was enormous, easily 5 times larger than his own vessel, but it felt more like a floating city than a military warship. Corridors were wide and well lit, with artwork from dozens of different worlds decorating the walls. Humans walked through the passages with purpose, but without the rigid, military bearing he expected from soldiers. Admiral Sullivan met him in a conference room that could have belonged to any diplomatic vessel. Comfortable chairs surrounded a polished table, and holographic displays showed peaceful images of stars and planets. Coffee and other refreshments were available, including synthetic nutrient solutions suitable for his species. "I apologize for the deception we practiced on you," Sullivan said as she poured herself a cup of coffee. "Most species we encounter prefer to meet us when they feel ready, rather than being surprised by our true capabilities." Zethkar accepted a nutrient solution and tried to organize his thoughts. "Admiral, your files in our databases list humans as having achieved faster than light travel only recently. They describe your people as a young species with limited technology and peaceful intentions." Sullivan smiled and activated a holographic display that showed the Milky Way galaxy. Blue dots appeared across the image, marking locations that the galactic databases had listed as unexplored or uninhabitable. There were thousands of them, spread across regions that other species had written off as empty space. "We have been watching the galaxy for about 200 years, she explained. "Learning languages, studying cultures, trying to understand how we might fit into the larger galactic community. The answer, unfortunately, is that we probably do not fit very well." Dr. Chang entered the room carrying a datapad filled with information about the captured pirates. She had changed from her medical clothing into a military uniform that showed her rank as commander. "We finished processing the prisoners," she reported. 437 individuals charged with slavery, piracy, and crimes against sentient beings. All evidence has been documented and prepared for tribunal review. Collins joined them, also wearing a military uniform that identified him as a lieutenant in the Human Intelligence Service. "We found extensive records on their ships about slave trading operations," he said while bringing up holographic displays. "They have been taking people from 17 different species and selling them to buyers in the Outer Rim territories." Zethkar studied the information with growing horror. The scale of the Karthak operation was much larger than anyone had realized. They had been stealing sentient beings from across the galaxy and treating them like cargo to be bought and sold. "This has been going on for decades," Sullivan continued. "The Galactic Council knew about some pirate activity, but they did not understand the full scope of the problem. We decided to investigate it ourselves." "Why?" Zethkar asked. "These pirates were not just targeting humans. They were taking prisoners from many different species." Admiral Sullivan's expression became serious. "Commander, we learned a long time ago that evil anywhere is a threat to good people everywhere. When someone starts treating thinking beings like property, it becomes everyone's problem." Collins brought up another display showing human colonies scattered across space. "We have been expanding quietly for 2 centuries, establishing settlements in places other species considered worthless. Desert worlds, ice planets, radiation-soaked systems that most aliens avoid. We learned to adapt instead of looking for perfect conditions." Dr. Chang added, "Every human colony has defensive capabilities and communication links. When the Karthak started raiding our outer settlements, we knew about it immediately, but we also knew they were raiding other species." Zethkar began to understand the scope of what he was dealing with. "So you decided to stop them?" "We decided to arrest them," Sullivan corrected. "There is a difference. We could have destroyed their ships and killed everyone aboard, but that would not have helped their victims or prevented future crimes." The Admiral activated another display showing the processing of captured pirates. Human medical teams were treating wounded Karthak warriors with the same care they gave their own people. Legal officers were documenting crimes and preparing evidence for galactic tribunals. Everything was being done according to established law. "We spent 6 months tracking their movements and identifying their leadership structure," Collins explained. "We knew exactly who was involved, what crimes they had committed, and where their bases were located. Today's operation was planned to capture specific individuals responsible for specific crimes." Zethkar felt overwhelmed by the implications. You have been operating in our space for months without our knowledge. Not just your space, Dr. Chung said quietly. We have been tracking Karthik operations across 12 different galactic sectors. This required cooperation from human settlements and intelligence networks that most species do not know exist. Admiral. Sullivan leaned forward in her chair. Commander, what you witnessed today was not a military operation in the traditional sense. It was a law enforcement action conducted by people who believe that justice should be available to everyone, regardless of what species they belong to. The room fell silent as Zethkar tried to process everything he had learned. The humans were not primitive newcomers to galactic civilization. They were an advanced species that had been quietly building their own civilization while studying everyone else. They had technology that surpassed most known species, but they used it for protection and law enforcement rather than conquest. What happens now? He asked finally. Now we turn the prisoners over to the proper authorities for trial, Sullivan replied. We will provide all evidence and testimony needed for conviction. The stolen property will be returned to its rightful owners, and the victims will be freed. Collins added, We will also share our intelligence about other pirate operations with any government that wants to cooperate in stopping them. Dr. Chang looked at her datapad. We have identified 47 other criminal organizations operating in this region of space. Some are small groups of raiders, others are large networks involved in slavery and illegal weapons trading. Zethkar realized that the humans were offering to solve problems that had plagued the galaxy for decades. You would share this information freely? Admiral Sullivan nodded. Commander, we learned long ago that security is something you build together or you do not have at all. We are willing to work with any species that wants to make space safer. For everyone. The conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the ship's communication system. Admiral Sullivan, please report to the bridge. We are receiving priority communications from multiple galactic governments. Sullivan stood up and straightened her uniform. It seems word of today's operation is spreading quickly. Commander Zethkar, would you like to accompany me? Your perspective might be valuable in the conversations we are about to have. As they walked toward the bridge, Zethkar realized that everything was about to change. The galaxy had just learned that humans were not the peaceful newcomers they pretended to be. They were patient hunters who had been watching and learning for centuries, building capabilities that most species could not imagine. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready to accept them as partners, or would see them as a threat to be eliminated. The bridge of the UES Thunderbolt was alive with activity as messages poured in from across the galaxy. Zethkar watched in amazement as human officers handled communications from dozens of different species simultaneously. Each conversation was being translated in real time, and every government seemed to want immediate answers about what had just happened. Admiral Sullivan took her position at the command chair with the calm confidence of someone who had been expecting this moment. For a long time, the main screen showed a holographic conference room where representatives from 12 different galactic governments were waiting to speak with her. Admiral Sullivan, came the voice of Chancellor Vextara from the Regelian Confederation. We demand an explanation for this unprecedented military action in neutral space. Your species was supposed to be under observation protocols as new members of galactic society. The Andromedan Trade Council representative, Ambassador Clelanoth, interrupted with his mechanical voice translator. Our shipping routes have been disrupted by your fleet movements. We require immediate compensation for lost cargo schedules. Admiral Sullivan listened patiently to each complaint and demand before responding. When she finally spoke, her voice carried across the communication channels with perfect clarity in every language. Honored representatives? She began. 3 hours ago, human space forces concluded a law enforcement operation against the Karthik Marauder organization. We have captured 437 individuals charged with slavery, piracy, and crimes against multiple species. All evidence has been preserved for legal proceedings under galactic law. The conference room erupted with overlapping voices as different representatives tried to speak at once. Some were angry about the military action, others were surprised about human capabilities, and a few seemed pleased that someone had finally dealt with the pirate problem. Captain Morrison approached Admiral Sullivan with a datapad. "Ma'am, we are receiving requests for assistance from 17 different colonies that have been affected by Karthik raids. They want to know if we can help track down their missing people." Dr. Chang reported from her station. "We have confirmed the locations of 6 slave markets where Karthik prisoners were being held. Human rescue teams are standing by for deployment if we receive permission from local authorities." Zethkar realized he was witnessing history being made. The humans had just announced themselves to the galaxy as a major power, but they were doing it by offering help instead of making threats. Ambassador Threlson from the Galactic Council's Security Committee managed to speak over the other voices. "Admiral Sullivan, our records indicate that humans achieved faster-than-light travel only recently. How is it possible for your species to mount an operation of this scale?" Sullivan activated a holographic display that showed the true extent of human civilization. Thousands of blue dots appeared across the galaxy, marking colonies, research stations, and defensive positions that had been hidden from galactic databases for decades. "Honored Ambassador," she replied, "humans have been traveling between stars for over 300 years. We have been studying galactic civilization during that time, learning your languages and customs while building our own communities in regions of space that other species found unsuitable." The revelation sent shock waves through the conference room. Species that had considered themselves the dominant powers in the galaxy were suddenly looking at a civilization that had been growing quietly in their shadows. Chancellor Vextara's voice shook with anger. "This is an act of deception that threatens the stability of galactic order. How do we know your intentions are peaceful?" Collins stepped forward with another datapad. "Admiral, we are receiving confirmation that the freed slaves from Karthik ships include citizens from every species represented in this conference. The victims are asking to be returned to their homeworlds immediately." Admiral Sullivan nodded and turned back to the holographic conference. "Representatives, we have rescued over 2,000 sentient beings from Karthik slave ships. Among them are citizens of your own worlds who were taken during pirate raids over the past 5 years. We are prepared to return them to their families immediately." The angry voices in the conference room suddenly became much quieter. It was difficult to condemn someone who had just rescued your own people from slavery. Ambassador Clelanoth was the first to change his tone. "Admiral, the Andromedan Trade Council would like to express gratitude for the return of our missing citizens. Perhaps we should discuss how to prevent future pirate activities." Dr. Chang brought up medical reports on her screen. "We have also recovered extensive medical data from the slave ships. The Karthak were conducting illegal experiments on prisoners from multiple species. This information could be valuable for treating victims and preventing future harm." Zethkar watched as the conversation shifted from accusations to cooperation. The humans had not just demonstrated their military capabilities. They had proven their commitment to protecting all sentient life, regardless of species. Admiral Sullivan stood up and addressed the conference with quiet authority. "Representatives, humanity did not reveal itself to become another competing power in galactic politics. We revealed ourselves because we believe that justice and security are responsibilities that all civilized species should share." She gestured to the data showing rescued slaves and captured criminals. "We have spent 2 centuries learning about your cultures and your laws. We have built our civilization to be compatible with galactic society. We do not seek conquest or dominance. We seek partnership in making space safer for everyone." Chancellor Vextara spoke more carefully this time. "Admiral Sullivan, the Galactic Council will need time to process these revelations. However, we acknowledge that your actions today have solved a problem that our own forces were unable to address." Ambassador Threlson added, "The Council would like to invite human representatives to participate in upcoming security discussions. It appears we have much to learn from each other." As the conference ended and the various representatives signed off, Admiral Sullivan turned to Zethkar. Commander, your report to the Valerian government will be very important. How you describe what happened here today could influence how the galaxy responds to humanity's emergence. Zethkar looked around the bridge at the human officers who had just changed galactic history. They were returning to their normal duties with the same calm professionalism they had shown during the battle. To them, rescuing slaves and capturing criminals was not a historic moment. It was simply the right thing to do. Admiral, he said finally, I will report that I witnessed the most advanced law enforcement operation in galactic history. I will also report that humanity appears to be exactly what the galaxy needs right now. Sullivan smiled and extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. Commander, we look forward to working with you and your people. The galaxy is a big place and there is room for all of us to build something better together. As Zethkar shook her hand, he realized that the day he fought alongside humans and witnessed real terror was not the day he learned to fear them. It was the day he learned that the galaxy had just become a much safer place for everyone.